It's time for Reason.
They're delusional. The blinders are on. I don't know if it's the higher education. I don't know whether it's the Common Core education. I don't know whether it's just been brainwashing for years and years and years. But when you lay out blatant facts to them, they refuse to listen. They refuse to acknowledge. There's so much opportunity to where if we just at least had a discussion and they opened their ears for a slight minute, then maybe they'd have a different perspective.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason on a Tuesday, the greatest day of the week. That's what we're talking about. Welcome in, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on TV as well, KGPT TV, channel 2610. Good morning. Welcome aboard. It's great to have you along. Now, I have to warn you, there are, first off, let's start off this morning real quick with a couple personal items on the agenda. Yeah, I know you don't want to hear about the personal life, but you're going to hear it for just a second. First off, number one, it finally set in. I was doing so well. I was doing so good. I told you yesterday that over the weekend, you know, the wife and the little one were sick, and they had the head cold, and they had the thing, and I don't know, it was just, well, I got it. It literally right after the show yesterday started setting in, going downhill yesterday a little bit. So bear with me today. I'm fighting it off. I think we're going to be in good shape. I am riding the high when it comes to all the medication to keep me going today. Maybe a little bit loopy. That's okay. So if I say anything and you're just like, wait a second, Andy, what? Bear with me here a little bit. That's all right. Thanks to Mrs. Voice of Reason. I do have my hot special combination of tea and everything today ready to rock and roll. So it should be a good one. I am looking forward to it, and just ride the wave with me, baby. It's going to be riding the high of a Tuesday. It is the greatest day of the entire week, and I am looking forward to it very much so today. No guest today other than we do have Bryan, Frye, Wichita City Council member. He will be joining us at 7:30 today. But other than that, it's open lines to you. Let's have some fun. Let's do the thing today. Let's advance conservatism, as we always love to do. The second bit of personal news, I did not believe this time would come anytime soon, but today is the very first day of school for my little one. Can you believe it? I know. Today is the very first day of preschool. Now, she is so excited. She, during work yesterday, I was talking to, no, I'm not high. I got a message on Facebook. Andy's high. Okay, I am high on Dayquil and Advil. That's what I'm no little loosey-goosey stuff here going on. Now, we're not in Colorado. That's not what we're talking about here. Bear with me there. But the fun little medication to keep me actually like breathing is what's going to keep me going today. So that's going to be the entertaining part. No, we are not in Colorado. Don't even think about that kind of stuff. I do have a story about that, by the way. But no, other than that, the other big story is that today is the very first day of preschool for my little one. She is 4. She is so excited. I was talking to Mrs. Voice of Reason yesterday during the workday, and I was talking to her on the phone, and Isla, she came up and she snagged the phone from her, and she said, Dad, tomorrow is my first day of school, and I have my Anna and Elsa backpack. And she was ready. She's ready to go. Now it's only like a 3 or 4 hour school day right now for preschool, so it's not that long of a day. But she's excited. She gets to meet her new friend. She gets to see the teacher. Now the requirements was when they got the little list of things that she needs to bring, she needed to get a couple boxes of tissues, which is fine because, you know, tissues you can get them for a couple bucks or whatever. It's not that big of a deal. But I really thought about that as we were looking at the list and she had to bring the boxes of tissues, because I kind of chuckled a little bit. As we talk about the educational finance issue in the state of Kansas, the resources in the classroom, you would think that would be one of them. You would think that a school district that's getting tens of millions of dollars, literally tens of millions of dollars, where we have a superintendent that's making, you know, $300,000-$400,000 a year sort of thing, and end of the year bonuses, and everybody's talking about school finance and taking care of the teachers. You would think that you could spend as a district $20 per classroom to buy a buttload of different tissue boxes for the classroom for the children. Now, I don't mind spending $1 for tissues because you know what? The kids are gross. I get it. They're sick. They get sick all the time. You're going to start seeing the flu going around a lot more now that it's school time, and the weather's starting to dip down in temperature-wise a little bit, so people are starting to adjust. That's probably why I ended up getting this, why my family ended up getting this, and why I ended up taking care of them over the weekend, and then I ended up getting something a little bit. So I get it. The temperature's changing. We're going back to school. Everything's all changing. I get it. I don't mind spending $1 or $2 on tissue boxes. I just find it ironic that we have so much money that we're sinking on, AstroTurf for football fields, but yet we can't buy $20 worth of tissues for the classroom. Isn't it just a little ironic? I do have a story about that a little bit later in the show, by the way, about the school finance, and now the latest when it comes to the discussions in Topeka is, finally, we have money in the school classroom because we just raised taxes last year, and we raised the spending for education, and we're going to be able to see a lot more money in the classroom, and we're really excited to see what's going to happen this year because the teacher salaries are going to be going up, and the resources are going to be going up, and we're going to be spending money. I'll believe it when I see it, because they'll probably do what they did last time where they raised 2-3% in salary for the teachers. Not a lot, but they'll do some, and then they'll give the rest of it to the administrators and then say, hey, we did something productive. We still don't have enough money. We need more money. You know it's coming. You know it's going to be there. You know it's there. But at the same time, what do you do? 316-721-8255. We got a lot to get to today. It is going to be a really fun show as a lot of big news coming out. The Democrats in absolute panic. Now that they're starting to realize that Greg Orman is officially on the ballot for the governor's race, they don't know how to handle this because they don't want to not win the election. And looking at the numbers, they're realizing that the independent, the quote-unquote a crowded race, I love how three's a crowd now, a crowded race is just going to be too much, and the Democrats aren't going to win. And the only way the Republicans could possibly win is by the crowded race going into the general election with an independent on the ballot. And now what are they doing? They're finding every excuse to try and sabotage that race by trying to remove thousands of signatures off the petition from Greg Orman's independent run. So we'll talk about that a little bit today. The numbers, what they actually look like. I've been breaking down and looking at some of the numbers. And just as an example for Sedgwick County, we'll take a look and see exactly what the numbers will look like in the county with different scenarios. So we'll talk about some of that a little bit later as well. Plus, Democrats nationally, what's their big platform are they running on? Oh, yeah, gun control. They're running out of ideas to actually try and appeal to the constituents and to the voters. I say let them because, it's not going to work for them. I'm pretty sure that issue's kind of dead and gone for a while, but they're going to try it. They're trying to revive the old school tactics, and it's just not going to work. Just not going to work. So we have a lot to get to, a lot to talk about. And, of course, yes, we do have a marijuana discussion to have today as well. Oklahoma trying to get recreational marijuana on the ballot. We'll see how far that actually goes. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but come on, they kind of already have it, don't they? They really do kind of already have it. Let's go to the phones. 316-721-8255, line at number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Eddie.
Good morning, Eddie. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Hey, you ought to get old Stephanie. Is she still there at your station?
She is. She does actually the afternoon news. She comes in a little bit later in the day and does all the rest of the day's news. Or
else get old Rick Everett in there with you. It would be a mess, wouldn't it? Him and his little smoking and all kind of trying to talk.
Every time he comes in here and he starts chatting, and then he's got his nice little e-vape deal, and he starts, and it looks like we got like strobe lights going on with the smoke machine, and and then you smell grape the rest of the day in studio because of that nice little poof cloud that he creates every time that he's in here.
Beautiful. What I'd really like to talk. Well, today is City Council Day, and I study the City Council, and for about the past month, I've been watching and taking notes. Are you aware that, and this is a fact, that people that are complaining about the city at the very beginning of the City Council meeting, they do not stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I've been actually documenting on my little paper a lady with white blouse, dark pants, short hair. So, good God, this one woman, and this is fact, she did not stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, okay, and she went up and complained about the golf courses being closed, plus possibly a pool. Now, is that something really to stop pledging allegiance to the flag about?
Well, it shows that they just don't necessarily want to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, I mean, yeah, it's sad, and I may have to bring something up like that to Bryan. I don't know if that's a big issue that they've really been concerned about or not, or if it's just like, whatever.
No, you don't have to anything like. I'm just pointing it out that just how ridiculous it is, you know.
Sure. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I'm sure, as far as I'm aware, the Sedgwick County Commission stands up for the Pledge of Allegiance every Wednesday with their meetings. I don't know why we wouldn't for the city council.
I mean, people. There are people that are complaining in the audience. Everyone stands up except maybe 3 or 4 people that are going to complain, either at the beginning of the meeting or when something is going on.
Sure.
You know, and to me, if you're not going to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance, just get the hell out of my country. I don't want you.
See, I'm right there with you. Now, you did bring up the issue, so I do have to ask you, the fact that the city actually owns and regulates 5 different golf courses in the area, do you think that's a little excessive for the city to be spending money on?
Since we're short of money, yes, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I am not a golfer, but my son's a golfer, but I mean, why are we spending money on something that all of us are not enjoying?
Sure.
Simple as that.
Sure.
And they built that Taj Mahal out there on the west side of town, so to compete against the country clubs, and that's where 90% of the money's going.
Well, and again, I mean, I don't even know why we need to have those. I mean, if there's plenty other private golf courses around here, maybe one public golf course is all we need. But the fact that we have 5 being regulated by the city, I think that's a little excessive. I mean, we not only have 5 city golf courses, but we have, as you mentioned, so many private ones around here, golf clubs and golf memberships you have to get or whatever the case is. But if you have numerous different private ones that you can go to, and then you have maybe one public one that you can go to, maybe 2. But I mean, how many golf courses total do we have in the area here with private and public? Maybe 10, 15? I don't know.
So something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, it is ridiculous, but I'm sorry that you're not feeling well.
Well, you know what? I got the special tea. I am, as I mentioned, I took, I don't even know what I took this morning. She gave me a whole bunch of pills that we, trying to ride the high when it comes to at least the congestion. So I'm good to go. It should be a fun one today. We'll see what kind of shenanigans we end up pulling today.
Oh, Andy, it's going to be a beautiful day, and you're just going to be just fine. Like I say, get old Rick in there. I love that old boy. Get old Rick in there and let him do his smoking and he's talking at the same time.
There we go. Love it. Eddie, appreciate the call very much, my friend. Love it. If we get Rick in here, then we're going to have to change like the whole theme, and we're going to see the smoke in the background, and the smoke's going to rise, and it's got to be very dramatic for the show. And it's that's just kind of the stage that we would have to set here, because I wouldn't put him on camera. I don't think the world is ready to see Rick Everett on camera that way as he's sitting there smoking his e-vape. So we just have it kind of poofing into the background, and as you see my camera, then you'd see kind of the smoke trickling off to the side around me, and then we'd have to lower the lights, and we'd have to raise the dramatic music, and we'd have to do something of that sort. Probably not what I need when I'm on a bunch of medication for my sinuses and stuff. 20 minutes past the hour. We'll take a break here. When we come back, the most ridiculous thing that was on your kids' list of things they need to get for school this year. I want to hear from you. Was it the Kleenex box? Was it like additional 5 or 6 more boxes of crayons? Was it the actual books? I mean, what did you have to purchase this year? I know school's starting already. I cannot believe it. It's officially fall time now. But now that we're going into the school year, the things the school district will not pay for because, well, they don't have to afford it, and they don't need to afford it because they have too much money going into the administration and the athletic department. The most ridiculous thing that was on your list of school items to purchase this year, what was it? I want to hear from you. 316-721-8255. This is The Voice of Reason on a Tuesday. It's a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. Let's have a good one.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
26 minutes past the hour. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. Living the dream, advancing conservatism on a daily basis, and it's great to have you along today. Let's kick off a brand new Tuesday, the greatest day of the week, baby. I love it. Let's go right to the phones here. 316-721-8255, 316-721, talk line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Good morning, Helen. How are you?
I'm doing just great.
Very
and
good.
I agree with you. I don't understand. We keep hearing on the media that all these teachers have to pay out of their pocket for things, for the classroom, for the school, the kids.
Sure.
What is it? I can't remember. Our 3 kids went to school. I can't remember one time that the teachers paid for anything.
Sure.
You know?
And it's frustrating, isn't it? Because we have the list when they give us the list for the beginning of the school year. Now, granted, my kid's in preschool, so I mean, we don't have the crazy laundry list of stuff. I mean, but I remember in high school, I mean, we had to purchase, which I still have it, and I'm kind of glad I did purchase it, but it was $100 for the big graph calculator that I needed for calculus and that sort of thing. But right now, it's the extra box of tissues and maybe a box of crayons or something like that. But then when you even go into the classroom, what's really frustrating is that all the posters and all the ABC things on the wall and all of those different different things to look at in the classroom, the way the classroom's actually decorated in the room, was all purchased by the teacher. Now, the teacher gets to actually do kind of do the personal touch in there, which is kind of cool. But at the same time, why is it their responsibility to put their own money into it when they're already not getting paid enough and they already have a lot of responsibility? Then they have to pay for the classroom themselves out of their own pocket. And then they're really upset, like we heard during the tax debate at the end of the year last year, is why we're getting rid of the write-offs for the taxes for the teachers when they actually purchase resources for the classroom. It should be the district that says, here's a magazine, here's whatever you need for the classroom, here's your budget, and we're going to pay up to this level for whatever amenities you need in the classroom. And then anything above and beyond, you can add your personal touch to and you can afford. But why would you spend all of it out of your own paycheck when you're already not making enough? And then we're saying, oh, look at this. It's evil Donald Trump and the Republicans when you end up getting rid of their tax write-off for it.
Well, and then be prepared, Andy. Kids going to be coming home and saying, "Well, we're having a school fundraiser."
Sure. Well, yeah. Then there's that.
And then so they want you to, they try to make you feel guilty because you don't help spend more money to, help out the school, help out the teacher, the class, or whatever. And so, and then you pay a whole lot of dollars for a bunch of junk,
I forgot about those. I do remember those fundraisers, and they'd be fundraising for I don't even remember what it was for certain things, and you could actually they talk about how exciting it was to do the tier step to where you could get a jump rope and you can get a squirt gun and you can get a Nerf gun and you can get all these fun things as you tier step on the way up, and the more money that you raise and the more fun little goodies and toys that you can. I forgot all about that, Helen. I appreciate it very much. We got to take a bottom of the hour break here. I don't even remember what those fundraisers were for, but you'd sell, almost like the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts selling popcorn or cookies or something, and then you can tier stuff all the way up, and you'd be so excited because you wanted to beat your friends that had the coolest toy at the end of the day.
Stand up, we were right. We can't be more justified, and we can't deny it. Stand up, we were right. We come too far just to stay.
Andy doesn't tolerate name calling.
You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
But if you want to try, call the show at 316-721-8255 right now. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Oh, man, I love it today. It's a Tuesday. It's a nice, cool day. It's a beautiful day. Welcome into it. Great to have you along to start off your morning the best way we know how to do, starting you off the right way. Interpret that however you'd like to do so. Welcome in, 316-721-8255, 36 minutes past the hour. It's frustrating, yet laughable at the same time, watching the Democrats squirm in their boots because they're so desperate. They're the ones that created this whole blue wave mentality right now. And yet we're not seeing the blue wave, so what do they have to do? They have to lie about it. They have to try and take people off the ballots because of it. And, oh, yeah, they have to try and just lie to you every single day. And then they bring back old platforms that they've tried to talk about for a long time. They've been on the losing end of these. and yet they try and use those as the basis of their platform for the elections 2018. But whatever, it's a school day. Today's the first day of school, at least for my little one and so many others out. It's that time of year. Again, be careful as you're driving through some of the school zones, something that you have to remind yourself again, oh yeah, I actually need to slow down for this area. As kids going back to school, I do have some of the numbers as the school district's all giddy about how much money they're actually going to be receiving this year, and some of the absurd money and absurd spending that's going into non-resourcical items that's in the classroom. You would think that it would actually go to the classroom, but not all the time. We'll talk about some of that throughout the show today, but the phones are lighting up, so let's go right to them. What do you say? 316-721-8255, line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Good morning, Jim. How are you, sir?
I'm cool, and I'm
It's a great
excited
day.
about school.
That's right.
But the thing is, I'm lucky. I'm 72 years old, so my kids aren't in school. I've got to worry about my granddaughter in a couple of years.
Sure.
Now, I'm going to move off the subject just a little bit. On the news just a minute ago, it was reported the homicide rate in Wichita is up 40%. What they haven't told us is exactly how many of those people are people who have recently moved to the city, either from California or Mexico, and how much of this new gang war, which is starting, is going to bleed out into different neighborhoods. We have a gang war starting now in Wichita, and they don't want to talk about it because of other things. However, the police chief the other day was very upset that the parents of this child that got hit with a bullet out in the park wouldn't talk to them. This is the problem. We're worried about violence in schools. We need to worry about violence in the city. President Trump is exactly right. When you don't control the borders, you get crime, and
sure.
we need to be aware of that. And as far as taking people off the ballot because they don't have the proper number of signatures, that's what the law says.
Well, what they're doing, which is kind of fun, and I do want to talk about this in a little bit, but just kind of a quick blurb on it right now, is that he had the proper number of signatures. The issue was that they turned in the petitions in plenty of time. The government did not process the petition in the right amount of time, so therefore they didn't look it over. They didn't verify the signatures. They didn't make sure everything was all hunky-dory in time, and now they're trying to say because the government didn't do their job in processing it before the deadline in enough time, that they should be removed because the Democrats now are desperate to try and get Greg Orman off the ballot. You got to remember in 2014 when he ran for Senate, they pushed their own Democratic candidate out of the race in order to try and get them to support the independent Greg Orman and vote that way. Now that they see this race coming in with a left-wing Democrat and then a moderate left-leaning independent, that they're going to be taking votes away from each other, and that's going to give them a very difficult time to win the election against a Republican. So now they need to get one of them off the ballot. They don't want to remove their Democrat candidate off the ballot, so now they're trying to figure out how to get the people that they told to vote for Greg Orman before to not vote for Greg Orman this time, and the only way they know how to do that is to try and get him removed off the ballot.
I agree that government failure to do things, whether it's government failure to preserve the safety of the school. I don't know if you heard Dana Lash's program last night, but apparently that school in Florida had received several $1 million specifically for security updates, which they didn't spend. Mm-hmm. They use it for baseball or something, but they didn't use it for security. And then, of course, the killer comes to school and kills the girls and stuff because he couldn't get a date.
Right, exactly. Yeah, he can't get a date. He's been chasing after this girl for a while, and he wasn't able to get her. Jim, I appreciate it. I want to seek in another phone call here, but you bring up an interesting point because it always comes back down to the guns. And as I mentioned, according to Fox News right now, that the Democrats nationwide are rebuilding their own platform again about running for the midterm election on gun control and the expanded background checks for gun purchases and trying to limit the amount of people that can have guns and trying to limit the amount of guns that are actually available to individuals. And sometimes you just want to stop and think, why in the world is this the issue that you're going to run on? If you know and if you actually pay attention that the majority of Americans do enjoy purchasing and owning firearms for their own protection because that's the smart thing to do. And if you're going to run on this issue, then why haven't you? I mean, it's been kind of a slower issue lately and not as much news about it. I mean, the last thing we talked about was, of course, the 3D printers and getting the blueprints to be able to print 3D guns out of plastic, which I don't know how well that's actually going to work. But now you saw the news that they're going to start persecuting and going after individuals that actually try and make these guns because they don't like those guns. And now they're going to run on extended background checks and more gun regulation. Let me ask you something. Did you hear a single Democrat? Did you hear David Hogg? Did you hear any of these gun advocates trying to take away your guns? Did you hear any of them go absolutely bonkers against the facility down in New Mexico training children to become school shooters? Did you hear anybody say anything about it? I heard some of the Republicans come out and be like, there's an ISIS member down there training kids. What the heck? I heard everybody kind of throw a little bit of a fit when he got off on a $20,000 bail and he ended up being released. Because, kidnapping children and training them to become school shooters is not that big of a deal, apparently. So I did hear some of the Republicans throw a fit about that. But did you hear any Democrats say, oh, wait a second, we're trying to stop school shooters. There's a guy down here that's kidnapping children and training them to become school shooters. Did you hear anybody say, oh, thank God that we arrested this guy? Did you hear anybody say, oh, wait a second, this is why we're having an issue. We're being brainwashed by a different ideology that hates us. We have individuals that are going rogue, that are creating facilities in the middle of the desert, that are training children, and now we're seeing the problem with school shootings. That goes against their narrative. It goes against their narrative because then they can't say, oh, it's the gun. As long as we just take away the gun, then everything will be hunky-dory. People aren't the issue. Guns are the issue. And if they didn't have the guns, then they just wouldn't do school shootings. That's been their platform. And now it's not working for them because now they realize, oh, wait a second. Now there's actually a facility where they're training kids to become school shooters because it's psychological, because it's in the minds of the children, because now they've been taught that this is okay, whether it's the video games that they play, whether it's the parenting and the lack of family values at home, whether it's the abuse that they've gone to, or whether it's the mental warfare that they've been subject to. Because of things like this, to where people tell them that it's okay. Regardless of whatever it is, this goes against the entire narrative. The media barely covered it. How long have we been talking about at the federal level in the national media? How long have we been talking about Russian collusion? How long have we been talking about Donald Trump being a racist? How long have we been talking about school shootings and how the different advocates like David Hogg and all these other yahoos go around the country now and start trying to occupy certain businesses and sit in at certain businesses and tell them how bad it is for them supporting firearms? How big of an issue was it when Riverside Cafe came out here in the Wichita area and said, yeah, you know what, we support firearms. We have for the last 13 years. We've had a sticker there for the last 13 years saying that we support you carrying your firearm in here. But all of a sudden now we put it on social media and people start protesting the place and stop showing up. How many people started acting out? But yet, how long of a news cycle did you see the bunker down in New Mexico about an ISIS member kidnapping children and training them to become school shooters? You heard it once when they found it, and you heard it once when you heard that he was released on bail. That was it. Why? Because they couldn't point towards the gun. They couldn't point towards the gun as the issue to address and say that we need to take away the firearm. I did not see a single tweet in the media from David Hogg saying, oh, thank God we caught this guy because now we can start making the kids safer at school because there's not a radical, crazy nut job training kids to shoot up schools. You didn't hear any of that because it couldn't be pointed towards the gun. It wasn't the NRA member that actually had the gun that was at the school shooting. These guys are pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic that they actually want to blame the gun when it's right boldly in front of our face, when we know exactly what's happening. We've been saying on this side of the aisle, it's a mental issue. It's a mental issue. There's something wrong. There's something not right here. It's not about the gun because the guns protect people, and the only way to get a bad guy with a gun is to get a good guy with a gun to be able to stop them. You heard about the shooter that after, like Jim just mentioned, the one that went into what was it, Maryland or Massachusetts, somewhere over on the East Coast, went over there, ended up walking into the school and shooting his girlfriend because he wanted the girlfriend and he was rejected and he was upset. What happened is that he ended up getting shot by the school resource officer within less than a minute because he wanted to. Was it the same issue? I think it was the same case. Because we actually stopped him because there was a guy there with a gun. That's what we need to focus on. But it was the gun issue, right? It wasn't the mental stability of the kid. It wasn't the fact that he was mentally deranged or that he was depressed or that he was upset or that he was emotional. It always goes back to the gun. Go back through the media. Try and pay attention to see how long they actually had this cycle of this ISIS member training kids to become school shooters. See how long they talked about it until they backed off it and went back towards, Donald Trump being another racist. Donald Trump hating another group. Donald Trump tweeting again. Now, if it was an actual school shooting that happened, and it was a kid, David Hogg would be there, the media would be there, the Democrats would be there. They'd be standing back up on the chamber floors, showing a gun with a chainsaw attached to the bottom of it again and saying, look at this. This is what's going to happen to our children. They're not only going to be shot, but they're going to be cut up with the chainsaw that's going to be attached to the gun. So that way they can have their dual purpose because guns are that evil. And oh, by the way, if you try and print your own gun at home, just like if you try to build your own gun at home, whether it's because you're a blacksmith or whether you got the starter kit and you actually crafted the barrel or you tried to actually design a gun yourself, because you have the right to do that under the Second Amendment. But whether it's crafting your own gun at home or whether it's printing your own gun at home, you're not allowed to do that. It's a very scary thing. The public should be scared of this, and we're going to try and ban it. That's where we're at in society today. It makes me sick. And I say, Democrats, if you want to run on this platform, all the power to you. Remember how many NRA members there are in the nation. Remember how many gun owners there are in the nation. Remember how many guns, period, there are in this nation. And then try and run on a platform that says we're going to get rid of those. We're going to take them away. We're going to regulate them. And oh, by the way, we need extensive background checks so that way you can't get your gun because the government's going to tell you can't do that. Try and run on a platform like that and then come back and tell me again that the blue wave is actually happening. Come back to me again and tell me that you're going to talk about the ISIS camp down in New Mexico and why it was a good thing we caught him, why in the world that we only let him out on a $20,000 bail, and then try and say that we're making this country safe again because we don't want another school shooting to actually happen. Come back and tell me these things and try and make the case that you're actually for school safety. It's unbelievable. I just don't get it. There's a crossed wire somewhere, and I don't know if it's on my side or on theirs. I'm pretty sure it's on theirs because at least I think I may be a little loopy today with the medication, with the cold and everything, but I'm pretty sure that what they try and advocate for and what they try to ignore doesn't make any sense to me. Just saying. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones here. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Andy, this is Todd.
Hey, good morning, sir. How are you?
Doing just peachy.
Good.
I remember about 5-6 years ago, we were selling trinkets and memorabilia at gun shows here in town, and Obama went with his big push to regulate the AR-15 and some of the, in their opinion, assault-style rifles, and he was the best salesman for guns that ever happened to this country. I couldn't believe how many guns were going in and out of that place legally with the scare that he put on just because he wanted to start to regulate guns.
Sure.
More guns were sold in those couple years than I've ever seen before. As soon as a Democrat opens their mouth, just watch the guns go off the shelf.
That is true, and I guess there is that positive side. I mean, we always look at the bright side of these things, and you're right. I mean, they mention gun control, and people start running out to buy more firearms. I don't know if it's dipped down. I don't know if the market's gone down at all lately or not because it hasn't been in the mainstream media, but I would think that people are still concerned about what could happen, especially now that the whole 3D gun printer issue is now being addressed because they want to try and take that away.
Well, that's going to all go by the wayside. The market price of the guns has gone down a lot, and it always does when a Republican's in office because there's no fear of, someone at the back door coming to take your guns. And, of course, that happens when a Democrat's in office. People just get worked up about it. But, I saw it wasn't just your redneck deplorables, as Hillary would say, buying guns. I saw lawyers, doctors, businessmen, clean-cut people, all walks of life, all races,
Sure.
I'm sure all religions, in there buying guns, filling out paperwork, showing their ID. And this was when Obama was in office, whenever they were trying to regulate him that time.
Mm-hmm.
And
But remember, I mean, the gun shows have tons of those loopholes to where you can just get a gun at any way, and you don't have to worry about some of those regulations, right?
Well, like the sheriff's officers that are at the door, making sure that you have the proper paperwork, you have the proper sticker from the dealer that is on the gun or the case. Those
Sure.
sheriff's officers, that was one preventative measure. When you come in, there's sheriff's officers that check your gun, make sure it's not loaded. They lock it open with zip ties. That's how they handle them around here.
Sure. No, you're absolutely right, and they just don't see it. They don't get it. I don't know if it's a different world or environment they live in, but they don't see it. They see the gun and they see it as a very scary thing. They don't recognize. I mean, they've tried to make these documentaries to where they've walked into gun shows and tried to purchase the guns in an illegal fashion, didn't do the background check, and it doesn't work out for them. But yet, once they figure out that their narrative that they thought was the case when they walked in and it didn't work out the way they anticipated, then shockingly, they never actually report that and say, oh, actually, it's not that bad of a system.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I agree, my friend. Appreciate the phone call very much so. 316-721-8255. Great points. No, you're absolutely right. The Democrats, every time they talk about this, then people go out and purchase the firearms. I know the women demographic right now is one of the largest growing demos of people wanting to go out and purchase firearms for protection. And, yep, they don't hear about that. It's the hashtag #MeToo movement. We'd rather be a victim and play the victimhood as opposed to never being a victim in the first place. And they just don't see that. But we need background checks. We need extended background checks. We need to get rid of the gun. We need to make it very scary. We need to make people run away from it as opposed to understand it and embrace it for our safety. If you want to run on a platform like that, Democrats, and I guess all the power to you, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. I am curious about like James Thompson running for the 4th Congressional District here, because the last time he ran last year, he had talked about being a former military individual and being supportive of firearms. And he actually, in his commercial, I'll never forget this, had an AR-15 that he was holding in his campaign commercial. Now that times have changed a little bit, now that the gun is a very scary thing and we're anti-AR-15 and he's embracing the Bernie Sanders socialized movement, I'm really curious to see whether his campaign ads running for this general election in November, if he's still going to do the same thing, holding an AR-15 saying that he supports the Second Amendment. I highly doubt it, but you never know. 7 minutes at the top of the hour. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
All right, top of the hour news coming up. Thanks again to all the phone calls. We got lots more to get to. Plus, Bryan Frye from the Wichita City Council going to be joining us here at the bottom of next hour. We do have some education finance discussions to talk about. We have some of the numbers to look at. Breaking down the election already. What do the numbers look like? And this three-way race, this crowded field, three's a crowd kind of thing. What's it going to look like going into that? That and your phone calls as well. We'd love to hear from you today on an open line Patriotic Tuesday. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
They're delusional. The blinders are on. I don't know if it's the higher education. I don't know whether it's the Common Core education. I don't know whether it's just been brainwashing for years and years and years. But when you lay out blatant facts to them, they refuse to listen. They refuse to acknowledge. There's so much opportunity to where if we just at least had a discussion and they opened their ears for a slight minute, then maybe they'd have a different perspective.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Boy, oh boy, it just gets better every single day. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas. On the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on TV, KGPT TV, Channel 2610. Good morning. Welcome aboard. It's great to have you along on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. We have a lot to get to today. Bryan, Frye, Wichita City Council member, going to be joining us at the bottom of the hour as we do every single Tuesday. But until then, it is open line to you, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Today is a special day. I cannot believe it. I never thought this day would come. 4 years later, she's 4 now, my little one, our little one, Mrs. Voice of Reason, all excited today. It's a little Voice of Reason excited today. It is the first day of school ever. Can you believe it? It is preschool today. Now, they have like a 3-4 hour preschool day, so it's not that big of a thing. But at the same time, she's going to school. She's got her backpack. She's wearing glasses. She got glasses a couple weeks ago because, she's getting older now and bigger, and she's just ready for school. I was talking on the phone yesterday with them when I was at work and just chatting and seeing how things were going and just doing a thing. And she grabs the phone, little one. I mean, she's still trying to talk and everything. She grabs the phone and goes, Dad, tomorrow I start school, and I have my Anna and Elsa backpack from Frozen. And she talked about, the backpack's ready. It sat on the door all night so that way she wouldn't forget it. She already had everything laid out to what she was going to wear. She is ready to go. Her first day of school. I cannot believe it. Like, the first day is actually here. It's kind of a wild concept to think about because now I'm never going to see her anymore. She's going to be at school all the time. Then she's going to find all her friends, and she's going to want to go hang out with the friends, and she's just doing her thing. That's what the next couple of years are going to look like. So I'm getting prepared and braced for this. And as we talk about school, school is finally beginning. It's hard to believe already, too, that earlier this year, we were having the debate about whether the schools were going to shut down or whether we were going to change the educational finance formula for it and whether the Supreme Court would actually allow this to go on. And we were waiting on pins and needles. We had the legislative session. They were all debating. They were all bickering. We were going back and forth. What was it going to look like this year? Were we going to shut down the school? Were we going to give them enough money? Were they going to accept the formula? Because we care more about what the Supreme Court has to say than actually going and getting the kids an education at the schools. And it's crazy that all this time has passed now, the 6 months, whatever it's been, and now we're at the time to where everybody's going to school. And I tell you what, the school boards and the administration are absolutely giddy about this school year. They are absolutely giddy about it. They are waiting on pins and needles. They're really excited about it because now they think that they have more money coming into the classroom and that they're going to address these serious issues. Now, if you remember, just about a year ago, when we actually gave them more money again, because they didn't have enough then, but now we're giving them more money now. All of a sudden, they're going to take care of their issues. But at the same time, last year when we did this, they got in the Wichita School District, at least, a 2% raise for the teachers because, they needed the throw them the bone sort of thing. We need to give them a little salary hike. That's what we said we were going to raise the taxes and raise the spending for, was to throw the bone to the teachers to give them a little bit of a salary hike. And then we ended up giving a 6% raise to administrators and the superintendent and everybody else on that side of the aisle. So now this year, we did the educational funding again in February, March, April. Figured it out. We gave them $500 and some odd million more if you actually look at it accruing year over year over year. And over the last couple of years, we've really given them close to $1.5 billion more, $1.6 billion more than what we have over the last 5 years. We've increased spending. Now, none of that has gone to the classroom. None of that really went to the teachers. But it's really in a really good shape. Right now we're moving in the right direction because now we've settled all the administrative stuff aside. Now we can focus on the teachers, right? That's what the argument is. And the Topeka Capital Journal does talk about the excitement going into this school year. The start of the public school classes in Kansas puts on display new investment by the state. The state as districts work to raise average teacher salaries and target resources at early childhood instruction, mental health services, and building safety priorities. Well, because, instead of actually getting people just with firearms in there to protect the students, we need to have more safety precautions, which I'm not against safety precautions in any way, shape, or form. It shouldn't be that expensive, though. I don't know how expensive they're actually sinking money on this, but here's the thing. Put a lock on the door. Safety. That's a good amount. Now, we did increase, as you know, last year, $525 million that are going into this school year. and some of the school board members across the state saying this is huge. We're excited about where the schools are spending the money. Where the schools are spending the money. That's what they're excited about. Oh, we got all this money. We're really giddy. We're really excited. Where are we going to spend it? I just don't know. We just got money coming out of our ears now. Now, we've talked about before about the cash reserves that school districts have actually had of over $2 billion across the entire state. With all the school districts, $2 billion sitting there waiting to be spent in operational cash reserves. They're not spending it. They want to hold on to the money while they say they don't have enough money. They want to invest in making bigger schools. They want to invest in making the athletic fields a lot bigger and better and nice little AstroTurf and making them all pretty. Because, I mean, we are coming into football season, and the football season's really, really important. So we need to not only have AstroTurf on the playing field, but on the practice field. We need to get brand new equipment because, well, you know, it is a couple of years old, so we need to upgrade that stuff as well, right? I know people love their football, but come on, really? Really? That's our priorities now? And then as we talk about, I'm excited, where's the money going to go? Talking about putting money into the classroom, into the resources, I don't know if it's going to. For example, according to the Kansas Policy Institute, salary increases since 2017 to 2018. Going into this school year, the 2018 school year, the 2018-19 school year. Where's the money going? Well, according to USD 500 up in Kansas City, here's where it is. A 97% increase for the superintendents. Shocker, right? Went from $232,000 to $458,000. A 97% increase of the superintendent's salary. I thought this was going to go towards the teachers. That's what we've been arguing, right? The teachers need the money, and they do. Let's pay attention to the teachers. You know, $232,000 up to $458,000. Just so you know where your money's going. Now, this is Kansas City's district, so it may be different in the Wichita district. Yeah. The assistant superintendent for the elementary schools went up 2.4% from $162,000 to $166,000. The assistant superintendent for secondary school went up 13% to $163,000 to $185,000. Chief financial officer, the one calculating the money on where the money's going for the district, went up 2%, $182,000 to $186,000, and it goes down the list. None of these, by the way, are teachers, according to the Kansas Policy Institute, except for if you want to call the library director. You do have the library. We were concerned here in the Wichita area about the librarian going away when we had to cut back the school year by 2 weeks last year. You remember that? That was the discussion that we had to either get rid of the precious, sweet librarian, or we had to cut the school year back by 2 weeks and then extend the day by 30 minutes. So that way we could still get in the time, even though we didn't learn anything. We could at least get the time in, and then we didn't have to get rid of the librarian. Well, the librarian, at least in USD 500 for the Kansas City area, went up by 3% to $130,000 as a library director for the district. None of these went actually to teachers. Even going to maintenance and custodians went up almost 7%. Where's the money for the teachers? When are we going to spend money on the resources in the classroom? When are the teachers that are already struggling, that don't get enough of the pay, that should get a salary increase, that already have to spend money in their own classroom? Show of hands. I know the teachers probably are already in the classroom this morning, are already heading to the classroom if they're not already there. But show of hands, how many of you teachers actually had to sink money into your own classroom for the decorations on the wall, for the Kleenex boxes in the classroom, for the additional snacks that you give the students in the classroom? How many had to sink their own money into that while we're fighting for more teacher pay raises? This is pathetic. And just as they say, the Topeka Capital Journal, all the mainstream media, oh, look at this, we're giddy. We have more money coming in this year, $535 million from last year. This is what we get additionally this year. We're excited. Where can we spend the money? Well, let me tell you something. The spending the money is not going where it actually needs to go towards. It's not actually going where they said it was going to go towards. And I guarantee you this year, they're going to come back and say, you know, this was great. Thanks. But what about that whole interest thing and inflation thing? What about inflation rising and us getting another $100 million next year? Because I don't know if we're going to be able to survive this year. I really don't know. Kansas Supreme Court, please get us more money. They just signed on for the whole litigation thing to continue on for last year, didn't they? Are they going to do it again? Probably. Are they going to fight for more of your taxpayer money? Probably. Because they don't care. They know that you've been fooled and duped for the last 50 years. They know that you've been fooled and duped by the local school districts and the local boards. They know you've been duped by the teachers' unions. They know you've been duped by the Kansas Supreme Court. They know you've been duped by the Democrats. And it's happened over the last how many years now? 50 years since we've had litigation. And they're going to continue it on. Now they're trying to change the argument. Well, I'm really excited. Maybe we should put something towards the teacher salaries. Well, now we actually got the formula down. Now we just need to get the inflation rates back up. This is where we're at. And it's not going to go away until we say that it's enough, which is why I think we had so many people turn out for the elections this year, again, to fight some of this stuff. But this is the first day of school, at least for my little one. I know it's been really this week and last week with the first day of school for a lot of individuals. It is an exciting time. At the same time, we're still having the same debates outside of the schools, outside of the classroom. Outside of the classroom, we have the same argument that we've been having year over year over year. And it's kind of frustrating, isn't it? It burns you up just a little bit inside. I mean, for the first day of school, I am so excited about my little one to go and wear her backpack and go see her friends and go see her teachers and go see exactly who's there and just get the excitement, the environment, because that is a really special time. It may be only 3 hours of the day, but it's a really special time. Is she going to benefit the best that she can from that because we're not focusing on the priorities for the actual funding in the classroom? What's going to happen to her? Well, guess what? When she comes home, we get to go over everything and actually do the re-education at home because we get to reiterate the important aspects of what she actually learned in the classroom. 20 minutes past the hour. We'll open up lines to you when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
24 minutes past the hour. Welcome into The Voice of Reason. Great to have you along today on a Tuesday. Hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. As we get along, it is school time, the beginning of school. Be careful, by the way, as you're driving around this morning, heading to work and seeing some of the school zones. Kind of an important thing to pay attention to. Just a little bit. Kind of an important thing. Be careful. Stay vigilant. Other than that, go out, enjoy. I still can't believe it. It is I know I keep saying this today, but my 4-year-old, the first day of school for her, kind of a really cool time. 316-721-8255. The really big question is, it's starting to remind me of like an abusive relationship. You ever been in an abusive relationship to where, the guy or the gal, whoever it may be, just kind of dominate and they do something really bad and then they ask for forgiveness, and then you forgive them, and then they do it again, and then you get really upset and then they ask for forgiveness, and then at some point finally you say, yeah, you know what, I've had enough, and then they ask for forgiveness, and then they get you flowers, and then they get you something else, and then they do something really special for you just to suck you back in, and it happens over and over and over again. That is the feeling that I get when I think about this litigation for educational finance. Over and over and over. Okay, I promise it'll be for teacher salary this time. I promise it will be. Okay, give them the raise. Give them the bonds. Give them the spending. Raise your taxes. All right, let's do it again. Oh, yeah, we gave a 2% to the teachers. Well done. We really took care of them. We're going to give 6% to the superintendent. What? We're going to raise the administrative pay. We're going to increase it. We're going to add a deputy superintendent. We're going to add 2 deputy superintendents, and then we're going to add a few more administrators on the back end. Okay. Oh, and by the way, can we do a local bond so that way we can get a new AstroTurf field for our practice football field? We kind of need that too. Can we please do that? What? And after a while you say no. No. So finally, after 50 years, and we got to give credit to some degree to Governor Jeff Collier on this one with the bill that they came out with last legislative session. Not that I agreed with it, but he tried his own thing. They submitted it. It's the $525 million in additional spending. And now they come back and they realize that the abusive relationship has gone on for a long time and we're about ready to boot them out the door and say, we're done with this. They come back and say, all right, the formula is correct now, but now we need inflation. Do you realize what inflations look like in different departments for school funding since 1992? According to the Kansas Policy Institute, again, teacher salary has gone down based on inflation by 7%. If you remember now, since 1992, we have increased educational finance 1% to 2% every single year. I know it's a lot of information early in the morning. I get it. This is really important. Because as you hear the campaign ads, you heard during the primary, if you watch Laura Kelly's TV campaign ads running for governor, saying that under the Brownback administration, we've cut educational finance. We've destroyed the lives of our children. We haven't focused on education, and it's just not true. 2% educational finance increase every single year since 1992. That's what we focused on. That's what we've done. 2% every single year. We have increased by inflation. We have increased more money. Tell me, how can you actually cut educational finance when you're in litigation for more educational finance? It doesn't work that way. And now we're talking about inflation. Inflation for teachers has gone down by 7% when it comes to their salary. Students at least gone up by 12%. Other staff by 38%. 50% for the administrative side. Inflation increasing. More money going into those departments. And yet you hear ad nauseum over and over and over again, we need more money, need more money, need more money. I drive by the school districts throughout the rural areas and around these areas here in the Wichita area, South Central Kansas area. And the massive schools, they look like universities. They look like university campuses. Massive buildings. And yet we need more money. Massive buildings. Need more money. I'll never understand it. I'll never understand it until the teachers don't have to buy resources in their classroom, until we actually say that we're paying them properly, then I'm not going to be content with this. Then, once we've taken care of the teachers, once we've taken care of the classroom, once we've taken care of the students, once we've taken care of the necessities of why we're actually there in the first place, not because of a football team, but because we're actually going to graduate with an education. That's why. I know we're getting close to football season. Everybody's all giddy and excited. I am too. Football's a great time. When the money's going towards an AstroTurf or a practice field as opposed to the books in the classroom, there's a priority issue there. And whether it's us, whether it's the local school board, whether it's the money coming down from the state treasurer, but they have no say in that. They just write the check and send it off to the district and say, here you go, do your thing. We have a priority issue. Let's address that, shall we? And no, we don't need any more taxes. No, we don't need any more money. No, we don't need any more school bonds. No, we don't need any more of any of that. We have plenty of money. Let's just appropriate it the right way. What do you say? Bottom of the hour news coming up here. Mike and Talk this morning. When we come back, Bryan Frye, Wichita City Council member, coming in, talking about the city issues, the budget being finalized. What's it look like? Where do we go from here? We'll talk about all that and more. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay tuned.
Taking talk radio to the next level. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome into The Voice of Reason, doing the thing today on a Tuesday, hashtag Patriotic Tuesday, advancing conservatism on a daily basis. This is driving me nuts. So bear with me today as it kind of riding the high a little bit. Took care of the family, the wife and the baby were sick over the weekend. What do? Yeah, thanks. Got that stuff. It is that time. We do it every single week on a Tuesday.
We built this city.
As we have our city council member, Mr. Bryan Frye, in studio with us. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ARG.
ARG. That's right. You still wearing the eye patch? How much longer you got for that thing?
My optometrist says I have probably a couple more weeks.
Couple more weeks?
Yeah. So, But it's feeling really good. It's just one of those slow hills. You're never used to an eye patch.
Never get used to it.
No, but it's going well. Thanks for asking. It could have been a lot worse, and so I'm just glad we have excellent health care. So.
Well, that is true. And you're very festive with the Wichita flag on the eye patch as well.
I got a sports Wichita flag. That's right.
There you go. I like that. Big news, of course, is the fact that we did pass the city budget.
Yep.
So that is done. That is over. And good news is we didn't raise any taxes.
Nope, no new tax raised. Everything is...
Even if the Wichita Eagle tried to say that we should.
Yeah, I did see that. And, there was a lot of people asking us about that. And I don't think that talk's going to die down. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to continue to hear from a group that wants to raise taxes, whether it be a property mill or a sales tax. And that's fine. We need to have that discussion, and I'm fine with having that discussion. But this year's budget did not increase taxes any. We did identify some things that we're going to have to work on.
Sure.
Very much this next year, specifically as it relates to funding for some of those quality of life issues, city arts and Cowtown and animal services and so forth. And we need to continue to find better operating models for those divisions. We did add 32 more staff to our police department,
Okay.
and we did increase our street maintenance funding over last year. So there were some investments made this year up above and beyond last year, which is good, and I think we'll see some big differences because of those investments. So it was a difficult budget season, but again, we've identified some things that we need to continue to work on. So
Now, part of that in the editorial piece out of the Wichita Eagle advocated for the mill levy being raised by $1 million for construction on highway stuff. You had talked about that as well, because I mean that was kind of your bread and butter. Your niche was talking about highways and making sure those are taken care of with the infrastructure and everything. We spend, what'd you say, close to $10 million on construction
on street maintenance.
On street maintenance,
we do,
and we're cutting it back by $1 million.
Right. So last year we had $8 million on residential street maintenance. Next year it's going to be $9 million, and as this is on top of just putting $10 million in from the Hyatt proceeds.
Sure.
So we are getting ahead of it. We didn't used to make this investment in street maintenance, and so we're catching up. We're doing a lot of catch up.
Sure.
But we are starting to get ahead of it, and that infusion from the Hyatt sale was a big difference.
Sure.
But there's just I can't even remember the number of lane miles that we have in this city. It's several hundred.
I was going to say it's a good amount.
Yeah, it's several hundred. But compared to Oklahoma and Missouri, our roads are pretty good.
Sure.
So, but no, we have to continue that investment, that infrastructure. That's key. Taking better care of the assets that we have. That's one of the key roles that we have in government. So.
Sure. I know that you're obviously not part of the school board or anything, but we are starting school again for this year in the city and in the district here. Everybody's excited about that. My little one's starting today.
Yeah,
actually.
Congratulations.
It's a crazy feeling. You think, you got plenty of time for school. Now preschool's already starting, and she's all excited about that. But just as the kind of the PSA reminder of being cautious around the school areas and the flashing lights and the school buses and all that kind of stuff, it's that time of year again.
Yep, it is. It's exciting. I know. Congratulations, a first-time preschooler. I've got a daughter in high school and a boy that's in middle school. So
does it ever change?
No, just the number of school supplies that you have to get increases, right? You go from having to have a box of crayons and a Big Chief tablet to a thumb drive and a laptop
and a $100 calculator.
Yeah, everything. Tape dispensers, pencil sharpeners. You're getting everything. So
sure. Looking forward to that one. No, it is a fun time of year with the schools. Now, outside of the budget, and now that we move on from there, there's a lot of little issues that are being addressed, and you guys are going to address them in the city council meeting today. But what's on the slate for today?
So today we have some very interesting items. One is the idea of creating a business improvement district. So this is an area, it's called the Douglas Design District. It's basically Douglas Street from Washington to Oliver.
Okay.
There's about 300 businesses in there, and they have a voluntary group right now called the Douglas Design District.
Sure.
And it's membership oriented, and people pay into it, and they use that money to fund advertising, special events, and so forth. So they want to create a committee to look into creating what they call a business improvement district, which is all of the businesses in that district now are mandatory pay in to a fund to take care of all those things. So it goes from a voluntary-based group to a mandatory. And with that, then they use that money to do all those things that they used to do as a voluntary group.
Sure.
And so we have a couple of these already. One is the Downtown Development District area, which is what we call the SSMID. It's SSMID. And again, the money collected from that assessment, which is basically a tax,
sure,
is used to fund all those activities. And so the way it's done is we have to have a committee to explore and put this plan together and then bring it to the council for discussion and consideration. So today would be that first step, identifying that committee that would then do that work of how it is structured, how much is the assessment, who manages it, and so forth. So that's what the committee has to do first, and then they bring it to us as a council to decide. And that also creates that public hearing opportunity for all those businesses to say whether or not they want to be involved or not be involved. And so, I can understand why the Douglas Design District wants to do this, because it takes it from to a stable funding source. They say that then all those groups that are not paying into the voluntary group now, that is getting all of the benefits, would now have to pay. So there's no more free riders. But also at the same time, that's another taxation without representation that I'm not necessarily a fan of.
Sure.
I think there needs to be much more oversight. Putting the onus on the city to collect those fees and then have someone else distribute them, takes that away from us. There's no more transparency.
Right.
So I gotta work through that. There's the argument that those free riders are already paying property taxes, so why should they have to have double taxation? So this is an interesting group or an idea. We're definitely going to have a lot of thought and discussion put on it, but today would just be that first step of establishing that planning committee. It does not obligate the city to provide the bid. It's that first step to investigate. So that's one of our first things today. We also have a new police records management system. The one we have right now, this is kind of shocking when you start looking at it, but it was built in 2000, and there was an update in 2005.
Okay.
It's not compliant with the KBI. The software is end of life. In fact, it's running on a Microsoft 2003 server. Okay, that's like decades ago in this business, right? So it's no longer supported. And this is the records manager for not only all of the archive, but all of the new production, anything that's new and added. So arrest records and so on and so forth. So
I picture like one of those 1990s action movies where you're sitting there and you see like the old school monitor with like the fuzz going through it, and that's kind of system you guys are kind of working on here a little bit.
It's pretty archaic. Yeah, it's pretty archaic. It doesn't communicate with other departments, right? So they have to do duplicate work.
Nice,
which creates opportunity for error. It creates a lot of inefficiencies, and so. We had a staff screening collection committee that went through and interviewed, I think it was like 6 different firms that do this. We did a lot of on-site visits, a lot of trial, a lot of testing. And so they finally found one that they like. And today we're going to be approving that contract. And it really is needed updating for some time.
Sure.
They've been working on this program for about 3 years. So it's one of those big investments, about $1.2 million contract.
Sure.
But that also includes some of the software and ongoing upgrades at no additional cost. That's part of the contract. So even though we're operating on something that's out of date now, this would allow us to continue to move forward without any new cost.
Okay.
So that's a big plus, getting that. And then one that's been in the press a little bit is a planning consent item related to a new development out east. And
now this is for the mini homes, right?
Well,
for the little homes.
So the developer, the addition is called Home Base, and these are regular sized, full size lots.
Okay.
They're not mini lots, but what they're wanting to put on these regular sized lots are smaller square footage homes. They're calling them micro mansions. Okay. But they actually don't meet the definition of a tiny home. A tiny home is 400 square feet and smaller. These are going to be 500 to 800 square feet. So smaller-ish,
but really not.
Smaller than most normal starter homes,
sure,
which are usually around 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. But they're calling these micro mansions. They're in an area of town that has not been annexed. It's already zoned for single-family residential, and so they're asking for us to annex it into the city. And it does border city property, so that is normal for us to do that. It's already zoned residential, so we're not talking about that. All we're doing today is agreeing to annex it into the city. The controversy is people are afraid that these are tiny homes, and it's going to bring down value for their neighboring homes, and it's going to add more crime and more traffic. But again, these lots are normal-sized lots, and so if the developer's not having success with these micro mansions, it's their property. They could build normal size homes on it if they wish without any permission or requirement to do so. So it's this something we've not seen in this community. We've not had micro mansions or these tiny, small square footage homes.
Sure.
I've seen some of the elevations. They are absolutely gorgeous. They are some of them have garages. So I mean, and they're very efficient. They're using granite countertops and full-size appliances and stainless steel, and so they are outfitted nicely, but they're not big homes like we're used to seeing in the suburbs.
Now, the surrounding area around that with some of the residential area, I mean, what's the value of some of those homes? Do we know that are around that area that are concerned a little bit about these?
Sure. So it is out by Krista McAuliffe School at 143rd and Harry. And so there are some pretty stately, high-valued homes out there.
Sure.
This particular plot is pretty good distance away from all this. I mean, it's in an area that has not been developed. It's wide open space. It doesn't abut any high-priced neighborhoods. There's a pretty good separation between all of them.
Okay.
So it's not like it's right next door to $400,000 homes. There is a buffer between them. So I get it. I understand the concern. Again, the developer, it's their property. It's zoned adequately, so they should be able to do what they'd like to do with it.
Sure.
And so today it's a consent item, which means all of the hearings, the public hearings, have been held already at other bodies between planning and zoning appeals and so forth. So now it comes to us because it's went through the process. There's been all that opportunity for public input. So now today, and again, all we're reviewing is the annexation.
Sure.
And our city legal team has looked, and they've not been able to find any cases where we've denied an annexation. And again, it meets all the requirements to be annexed into the city. So for us to deny that would probably be open to litigation.
Sure.
And again, there's no grounds for denying it. So now Pete Meitzner, who's the council person for this district, is probably going to bring it back to the bench for discussion, just to go through all of that with everybody to let them know exactly it has met all the requirements.
Sure.
He doesn't have to, but I imagine that he will, just to be open and
just
transparent.
to be open, sure. Well, and it's going to be an interesting conversation because you're right. I mean, it is a bit controversial. I've been hearing about it. I haven't talked about it much on the show, just to kind of wait and see what's going to happen with this. But it is kind of an interesting concept, whether it does bring... I don't know, because the value of these homes are what, anywhere from 75 to
100,000. Yeah,
okay.
about 100,000.
Okay. So I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with it, whether it is going to be successful, whether it doesn't work. Now, as you mentioned, these are regular sized lots. So,
right.
I mean, if it doesn't work, it's going to be more of a challenge, obviously, at the end of the day. But we could start over in those lots, correct?
Right. So there's 90 lots that they've got platted, which is the map for the lot for the property. And depending upon where they, how successful they are with this and marketing it and people buying them, because they're normal size lots, they could put, a 1,400 square foot home on it with all the proper setbacks and still fit properly.
Sure.
So it's, they have that flexibility to, if the market's not buying these, then they could certainly go and do the standard size if they need to.
And I think there is a market for $100,000 and cheaper in the area. I mean, when we moved here, that's what we looked at, and it was finding kind of the fixer-upper, kind of some of the older homes and in nice neighborhoods. And it is a bit of a search, but you can find those. But I think there is that market for $100,000 and cheaper for maybe the first-time home buyers and that sort of thing.
Right. And again, I hope that there is a market for these type of homes, because we have a lot of vacant lots in the interior part of the city, the centralized core. And again, today we've got 7 houses that we're hearing condemnation hearings on. They're all in the inner core. The lot sizes are small. They can't put new homes on there that are of the 1,500 square foot variety.
Sure.
But maybe some of these smaller micro mansions could fit on these lots very well. So I hope that there is the opportunity for people to see these and start thinking, you know what, hey, this might work in the core where we've already got the investment in all the infrastructure.
Sure.
We've paid for all the streets, we've paid for all the storm drains, all the sewers and everything, but yet now we have all these vacant lots that are not paying property taxes.
And that might be a good place to put them.
Yeah, this might be. So I hope they are successful. Like I said, I've seen some of the drawings, and they look fantastic, very contemporary looking, very space efficient. I mean, they're really like large apartments, but they're single-family dwellings.
Sure.
And so I'm very intrigued. Again, it has met a lot of controversy. It's got a lot of people talking, and there's been news stories on it. And I expect there will be people at the council meeting today. And again, it's just one of those unknowns.
Sure.
We hear a lot of this type of thing when people are wanting to put in duplexes in residential areas, and a lot of the theories and fears are not borne out. So we'll have to see how this goes over. But like I said, we got a lot of interesting items today.
Oh, sure. Always finding a way to ruffle the feathers.
Yeah,
that's right.
There's always somebody upset about something, but it's all good.
I love it. I love it. Very good city council meeting today. Go ahead and check it out. If people want to show up today, how can they do so?
City Hall, we're at 9 a.m. at Central and Main, first floor boardroom. So we should get started around. We got some public speakers and a proclamation or two, and then we get right into the business meeting of it. And
sure.
So it's always good.
Start hashing it out.
That's right.
So, but you guys kind of take a little bit of a breath after last week and being able to pass the official city budget.
Yeah, like I said, we still have work to do on it, and we'll continue to work through those items and meeting and trying to figure out better models, more efficient ways of doing things. There's going to be a lot of talk, I believe, continued on what we talked about earlier about taxes and possible sales tax or possible property tax. There's going to continue to be that pressure on us.
Sure.
And that's fine. That's what we're here for. We're supposed to do that and look through it and review it and figure out what is the best plan.
Sure.
So I just am excited about where we're going as a city. I think things are very positive right now. There's a lot of great stories continuing to happen, and it's just a great time to be in Wichita.
Very optimistic. I like it. City Council member Mr. Bryan Frye, always a pleasure, my friend. You guys enjoy the meeting today.
All right. Thank you, Andy.
Always a good pleasure. We'll take a break. 6 minutes to the top of the hour. We'll wrap up this one. Get ready for hour number 3 right here on The Voice of Reason.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Top of the hour news coming up. Thanks again to Bryan Frye, Wichita City Council member, joining the program. We got lots more to get to today. It is a Tuesday. We'll get into some of the election stuff. The Democrats panicky, baby, about the crowded race that's going to be happening for the governor's race. I mean, 3's kind of a crowd sometimes. You don't go to the theater with... I have to tell you that story a little bit later. But nonetheless, 3's a crowd, and they don't like the independent being in this race. Will it divide the Democrats? They think so. They're recognizing that fact, and the panic is beginning to set in. Can they remove Greg Orman off the ballot? That would be interesting. We will be speaking to Greg Orman tomorrow on the program, independent candidate for the governor's race. We'll get your thoughts and calls as well. It is open lines to you in hour number 3. Stay tuned. Lots more to get to. It's a good day right here on The Voice of Reason.
It's time for Reason.
They're delusional. The blinders are on. I don't know if it's the higher education. I don't know whether it's the Common Core education. I don't know whether it's just been brainwashing for years and years and years. But when you lay out blatant facts to them, they refuse to listen. They refuse to acknowledge. There's so much opportunity to where if we just at least had a discussion and they opened their ears for a slight minute, then maybe they'd have a different perspective.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 3. The Voice of Reason broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas. On the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on TV, KGPT TV, channel 2610. Good morning. Welcome aboard. Great to have you along on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. We are still riding the wave, baby. I've been riding the high on the Dayquil all morning long, and we're still kicking it, making it happen, doing the thing. 316-721-8255. It is open line to you for this hour of the program. Thanks again to Bryan, Frye, Wichita City Council member, coming in. A lot of issues that I wanted to address, didn't get a chance to do so, that we'll talk about next week when it comes to more of the budget, when it comes to the golf courses, when it comes to some of the other things happening in the area. But he brought up one issue that I've been wanting to talk about, and I haven't done anything yet, but now they are talking about it at the city level, at the city council meeting. So I open this up to you because I know it's been a really passionate debate and discussion on both sides of the aisle about these micro mansions and these homes that they're talking about building potentially as we look to expanding the city, as we look towards revitalizing some parts of the city, as we look towards to the property values, and we look towards different ways to make it sustainable. But these micro mansions that are possibly coming into the city, is this a good idea or is this a bad idea? Now, it's obviously a private group that's looking at doing these micro mansions, which if they have the lots and they have the ability, then they have the right to put whatever they want to on their lots, right? At the same time, the surrounding area, how much of a voice do they have to wait and say, put their hands up and say, wait a second, not sure that I like this idea. Not sure that I like it. I mean, as Bryan mentioned, I mean, just down the road a little bit are the homes that are $400,000. And I mean, the bigger lots, the bigger homes, the bigger values. And then we see a quote unquote micro mansion that's going to be anywhere from $75,000 to $100,000 homes. And there's the pros and the cons for something like that. I mean, look, my home is valued, I want to say, right around $80,000. It's less than $100,000. It's a starter home. It's an older home. Now it's the home that was built in like the 1950s. So, you know, it's in a decent neighborhood. We got the fixer-upper. We can make the fixer-upper, and it's good to go. At I'm curious if it's a home that's a tiny micro mansion, is what they want to call it, that's anywhere between 400 to 800, 400 to 500 square feet. And there's numerous of them on a lot. How much more can you raise the value of it? Or is that the cap? Just done. It's over. There's the value of the property, and it can only go down from there based on the use, based on the wear and tear, based on how old they end up getting, based on, you know, how people actually take care of the property around the area. Is it going to turn into like a mini trailer park, but without the trailer sort of thing? And I am concerned about that because we need to keep the value of these up. Now, they do say that they're going to have the HOAs. That's not helping the case in any way, shape, or form because I don't think that people actually want HOAs. But that was their argument to say this is going to be able to hold up the value of this area. So I open it up to you. I know we already have people commenting on Facebook Live about the micro mansions, but would you like to see going towards this direction when it comes to smaller homes? Now, we've always been in society, which is why I have a hard time grasping this type of mentality, because we've always been in the society about ones making things bigger and better. Bigger. It's got to be bigger. It's got to be more beautiful. It's got to be more elegant, more elaborate. It's got to be better. Bigger, better, faster. That's what we talk about, right? And this is kind of going the other direction. Now, efficiency plays into that, and if you have a smaller home, obviously it's going to be cheaper, so people on the lower end of the economic spectrum can actually afford it. I mean, it's going to be a $75,000 home, $100,000 home. That's going to be a little more efficient for individuals that way. It's going to be done with ways to make the energy costs less expensive. It's going to be more mainstream, and it can definitely help. At the same time, cramming numerous buildings into an acre lot or numerous into a private lot like that, is that going to be the efficient way to do it? Now, every city looks at ways to try and increase more living quarters and living spaces. Every city tries to look at ways to expand, and we're expanding outward. And I don't know how much we've talked about expanding upward and actually making bigger buildings, but I know that that's potentially, I'm sure, something that will come up at some point in the expansion of the Wichita area and the South Central Kansas area as more people begin to move here. I don't think we've seen enough population increase right now to be able to see that, but I'm sure that we have a housing need that we have a housing market need. Let me tell you something. When I moved here 3 years ago now, and we are looking for homes, it was very difficult to find something in our price range that was semi-close to work, that was within a good neighborhood, that was within livable standards without sinking a lot of money into it as a fixer-upper. I don't mind fixer-uppers. I grew up in fixer-uppers with my family and my in-laws and everybody. We've all had fixer-uppers to work on and kind of tweak it to our own personal liking. But it's got to be within the means that we can actually do that. We can afford the fixing-upping, and it's within my capabilities of actually doing so. And between my wife and I, we are able to do what we've done with our house, and I'm very proud of where our house is right now. And I'm sure the value has gone up some in the last 3 years. Now, some cities are starting to, I don't know if you saw what's happening in Colorado and in Denver. As you know, the homeless population is completely ridiculous. The housing market is utterly expensive and completely out of the realm of anybody moving there. Unless you're getting a lot of money, then you're probably not going to be able to live in Denver or in the surrounding areas. But they've created kind of like these micro mansions, but it's massive apartments. And they've had waiting lists on these apartments, these tiny apartments that are 300 to 350 square feet. And they're going for $1,000 plus a month. That's the type of real estate that we're looking at in Denver. Now, obviously, Wichita and Denver are completely two different markets, but if we're going to start going towards the tiny, quote-unquote, micro mansions, would it be maybe safe that we start looking at maybe tiny little hotel or apartment quarters like that, as opposed to small little tiny homes? Apartments you can kind of keep consolidated. You can keep within the downtown area or some of the other areas like that. You can make it relatively cheap. You can keep it near some of the universities for some of the college kids, and that way it's not lowering the value of the surrounding homes. Because that's the biggest issue right here from everybody we've talked to and we've seen, especially in some of the news stories, is that they don't like the property values going down with their homes that are $300,000, and then you see something there that's $75,000. Obviously, that property hopefully would be able to keep its value, but that's kind of the peak in the prime of it. If it's numerous different small homes on the lot, you're not going to be able to expand a whole lot. You're not going to be able to grow a whole lot. That's kind of the peak. It's kind of like driving a brand new car off the lot of the dealership. You know, that's about as much as the value of the car is going to be. And it can only go down from there. Not that it's a bad thing, but when you buy it, that's kind of the peak of the value. These homes, I see them as kind of the peak of the value. Can you expand them? Probably not if there's 3 different homes on the same lot. I don't know. Property value versus more space for individuals to live. Would we prefer maybe something like those micro apartments as opposed to micro mansions? Your thoughts on this? Kind of an interesting conversation. 316-721-8255. As we look at expanding, we need to look at finding ways to expand the city. Need to find ways to look towards investing in the city, enticing people to move here to the city. And whether it's the lower income when you can afford a $75,000 home, whether it's increasing bigger and better homes when you're looking at $300,000-$400,000 homes, we need to find a happy medium between all of them. But what's the best way to do it? Where's the best place to put them? And how do we entice more development in our area? We need development. I'm not saying we don't. But how do we do it in order to appease everybody the best way we can in the community would be kind of an interesting conversation. Your thoughts on that? Let's go ahead and take a break. 16 minutes past the hour. When we come back, I want to shift gears just a bit to the race, as now it's getting a little bit heated with the crowded field of 3 individuals in the governor's race. And one of them that may be, potentially leaving the ballot. I'm sure we'll see some litigation on this as we continue to go through, just months away to the midterms in November. This is The Voice of Reason on a #Patriotic Tuesday. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker KQAM.
23 minutes past the hour. Welcome into The Voice of Reason. Happy Tuesday morning to you. Great to have you along on a Tuesday. 721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Let's go to the phones. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Greg.
Hey, good morning, sir. How are you?
Pretty good. Hey, can you explain to me why the city is required to keep growing and stacking people in here like crates in the warehouse. I don't get this.
Well, I mean, they're not required to do so, but as we look at, I mean, whether it's a state, whether it's a city, or whether it's a county, I mean, we're always looking to grow, whether it's population-wise, whether it's economically, whether it's business-wise. We're always looking to grow, and the only way we're going to grow when it comes to especially economically is if we have more consumers coming into the market to be creating jobs, to be creating wealth, and that's how we grow. So we just have to find, when they do come in, not that it's mandatory, but that when it happens, we have to be prepared for it.
Well, it's like lemmings. Everybody says we got to keep growing. No, we don't. Why can't we just take care of what we got, be the best we can be? And you know, the bigger a city gets, the more gangs you get, the more murders you get, the more traffic you get. Sounds really lovely to me. It's just dumb.
When you're right, and coming from small communities like myself, I mean, coming up from little towns in Colorado, little towns in Ohio, you don't like seeing a population growth because you're content with the small town, in the sense if you live in a small town and you kind of like the way it is, the small town feel, you don't like a whole lot of more people coming in. When I left the little town of Bailey, which by the way was 45 minutes outside of Denver, up in the mountains, it felt like a suburb of Denver. You try and go up into the mountains on a Friday when people are trying to go up and camp or trying to go visit family, and it took you 3 hours to get home, what would normally take you 45 minutes, and it would drive me nuts. And I would say, get off the mountain, leave me alone. I don't want you up here because this is our little town, and I don't want you here. And I understand that mentality, and I respect it gratefully because, you're right. When things increase, that means not only is the city increasing, but that means law enforcement needs to increase, and then crime begins to increase, and more. I mean, things start to change a little bit, and I'm right there with you. It's finding that happy balance between finding a way to grow economically and seeing GDP growth, seeing more jobs come in for the economy to do well, at the same time keeping it small enough to where we see the right communities stay the way it needs to.
Well, I have no desire to live in Kansas City or Oak City or any of that other stuff.
Sure.
And, it just gets, the bigger it gets, it just seems crummy to me. This idea that it's a Ponzi scheme is what it is. We're not big enough yet. Oh, we need to get bigger. Oh, let's get bigger so you have more income. And then we spend that income to get bigger. It's just so dumb.
Sure. I totally get it. I understand that. The mentality, it's very much so. I appreciate the phone call. I want to sneak another one in here. But, I mean, you're right. You're right. As we grow, then we have more issues. And some people say, I just don't want to grow. I don't want it to grow to that point to where we entice certain crowds to come in. We have more people. We have more issues we need to address. We have more problems with the strain on the water or on the electricity, and we need to expand that way. We need to spend more money. I get it. I get it. I mean, that is a really valid point, and I'm one of those myself growing up in small towns. I've never lived in a city before. Wichita is the first city that I've actually lived in, and I'm still trying to adjust because there are so many people. Just staying at the same time, if you stay just the way you are, then, there's that downside to that as well. There's that downside to the lack of economic growth. There's that downside to the lack of opportunity that we have for more job growth and for the benefits that we do because of seeing an economic growth. So, I mean, there's the pros and the cons. We just have to find that happy medium between the two. Let's go back to the phones line at number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, Andy, that's Sean here.
Sean, what's going on, sir?
Hey, a micro mansion, huh?
That's what they're calling it, the micro mansion.
I can't tell you what I picture in my head in terms of micro mansion, micro cities, and micro people. But anyway,
it's funny you mentioned that. There's a little town in Colorado on your way up the mountain as we're going up to the mountains where I used to live, and there's a little turnoff for what they called Tiny Town, and it was literally a full-on town of small little homes for like children that played that were like 4 or 5, 6 years old, of little homes and little stores. And I mean, they're no more than like 3-4 foot tall. And that's kind of when I think about the name of a tiny mansion or a micro mansion. That's kind of what I'm thinking of, are these tiny little homes with small little people, and they're running around and they're having fun. And it's kind of its own little town within a town sort of thing. That's not what's happening here, but it is kind of ironic that you kind of think something like that.
Well, I was just thinking about it. a Godzilla movie. You know, he's stepping on people and stuff. So, but anyway,
There you go.
I just caught this subject. I don't know how long you've been talking about it, but I was trying to picture what a micro mansion looks like. I'm thinking, well, was this darn thing made out of gold or something? But anyway, it sounds like to me that this concept has been tried before, but just under a different name.
It's been tried. You're right. It's been tried in different ways. And that's why I brought up, I mean, I think almost maybe the better idea would be to look at maybe like what other cities have done as we are growing as a city, that instead of doing it as tiny little homes, that we use tiny little apartments. I mean, eventually they want, now I'm not for, compacting people in that sense at all, because when you have compacted people into small groups and small areas, then it's easier to control, easier to regulate. And I'm not in that sense in any way, shape, or form, which is why I don't like small homes. I don't like small apartments. But I mean, I use the example of Denver. They came out with tiny little apartments, and it looks like a sphere. It's a circular apartment complex that's a semi-skyscraper that holds hundreds of apartments, and they're about 300 square feet apiece, 300 to 350 square feet, and it's just one room with a bunch of amenities. And I don't like that idea. I don't like those types of apartments, but if we are going to cram people into tiny quarters, maybe that's the way you do it. I don't know. I'm not for the tiny little control in the compressed areas. And Sean, I appreciate it. We got to take a break here. We got some other calls on the line. Don't go anywhere. I want to get to you when we come back, but I don't know. I just don't like the small quarters. We're all about getting bigger and better and growing and making things bigger, better, faster. And homes, I kind of like increasing the size of home, not downsizing the homes. That's just me personally, though.
It makes us stronger every day. And if you're thinking
The fastest growing radio show in Kansas.
What? How's he do that?
That's what I'm talking about.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome into it. That's the way we roll. We're just, advancing conservatism on a daily basis, waking you up the right way. Consider that however you'd like to do so. 316-721-8255, your one and only local conservative talk show, and we love it. Welcome into it. Phones are jammed right now, 316-721-8255, so let's get right to them. Your thoughts on any of these issues and more. Line number 3. Good morning. What's your name?
Andy, it's John the Libertarian.
John the Libertarian. How are you, sir?
I'm fantastic, thanks. I kept listening yesterday after I was off, and you had posed a question and asked if I wanted to call back in, but I never got to yesterday. So I didn't know if you wanted to dive back into the issue of ranked choice voting,
Sure.
or waiting until Bob's back on. Okay.
Sure, no, that's fine. Go for it.
You had asked why Libertarian would be in favor of the ranked choice voting, and I just think that it really opens it up. So I have no data to back me up, but I've often wondered how many people get into the voting booth and say, well, I'd like to vote for that Libertarian, but he's got no chance of winning. Or I'd like to vote for that independent candidate, but it's throwing my vote away. And so they end up going with the Republican or the Democrat. With the ranked choice voting, you can vote your conscience, and then you can use that second choice as the one, as your safe pick, if that makes sense, as the one that you don't want to lose, but you can vote for your favorite first. And I thought maybe, one of the callers after me was a little confused on what ranked choice voting is, and I don't think either one of us actually described it. So it's not going in as a caucus. You go into your little 3-minute session in the voting booth, and you just rank your choices for each section. You don't have to go back in and vote again after somebody doesn't get 50%. So I think we need to make that clear. It's just one session, and then it's an instant runoff if somebody doesn't get 50%.
Sure. No, you're right. And I mean, the idea of caucusing came up, and it's a great discussion to have on different styles of how to actually elect somebody, whether it is a caucus, a private, an open or closed caucus, whether it's the 50% plus, whatever. And that's not necessarily what the And that's not what the ranked-based voting was, but it's an interesting conversation to have as we talk about the election process. So you're saying going into it and kind of ranking your candidates on the list from best to worst or worst to best or however you want to do that, that when you vote, if you walk in and you're voting for somebody, let's say that you're a libertarian and you want to vote for the libertarian, you don't see that they actually have a chance of winning, you want to make your vote a little more substantial in that sense, that if you rank it and say, all right, this person's my second pick because they got a better chance of winning, or that I don't like this person there at the bottom and I really don't want them to win, that if you end up not voting for the libertarian candidate, you end up voting for, say, the Republican over the libertarian, then it's not because it's just kind of a mental state that you're not voting for the person that you don't want to and you're sacrificing, but you're saying, okay, I like this person second best, so therefore I feel a little bit better about my vote. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, so for me, I'll just use me as an example. Coming into this gubernatorial election, unless I hear different stuff from Kobach, I would like to put Jeff Caldwell, the Libertarian, first. And then because I'm afraid of the tight race, and I would rather have Kobach than Kelly or Orman, I would put Kobach as my second choice.
Okay.
So I can vote my conscience. I can vote for the guy that I think really aligns with me, and then I can also put my second choice on the guy that I need to win if my guy doesn't. Now, that doesn't apply to this election. There's no way to get ranked choice voting in time for that, but I'm just using that as an example. So in real life, though, right now, me going into the voting booth here in November, I really don't know what to do because I don't want a Democrat. Sure. I don't want Orman, and do I just, hold my nose and vote for Kobach, or do I vote my conscience and risk my vote being the one, because we've seen how close it can be, that allows a Democrat to get in?
Sure. Well, that would be an interesting concept, and I'd be curious to see if we tried to move forward with anything like that. I don't know that we would necessarily try a ranked-based voting system like that in the near future. It could be potentially brought up, but again, I can see it for a general election like that. I don't know if it would necessarily help the primary. As I mentioned yesterday, I think in the primary race, it would almost do damage to the plethora of candidates that we could potentially have in the primary, wouldn't it? Because it would be kind of sacrificing with the 12 different candidates that we could potentially have if you end up sacrificing to some degree and saying that I'm going to vote for this person because they got a better chance of winning in the general, or because they have the majority of the support right now, or whatever the reasoning may be at that time. Wouldn't it almost damage the primary process with whoever wants to jump into the race?
I actually see it from the exact opposite way, and a lot of people debating this like the idea for primaries but don't like it for the general election. The reason is, let's go to the Trump primary. You had 15 people that we could label, Republican, conservative, and then you had Trump, kind of the outlier. And so many people split their votes on these conservative candidates, and Trump kind of rose up because, he was the outlier.
Right.
And if I could, let me put it a different way. So if you had type A candidate, which maybe all those conservatives were,
sure,
and then a type B candidate like Trump. Well, 2/3 of your party want the type A candidate.
Right.
And only a third of them want type B. Well, if they split their vote, that 2/3, if they split their vote among 3 or 4 candidates in the type A category, then type B, who really only a third of the people wanted, is the one that wins. And that's precisely what happened in the Trump election.
Well,
and with ranked choice voting, that wouldn't happen because somebody going in voting for Rubio is probably going to put Ted Cruz as their number 2, and Trump's going to be towards their bottom. And so you're going to get your type A, or you're going to get your conservative candidate rather than Trump.
The only issue that I have with that, the only concern that I would have, was, as we talk about the difference of like a republic versus democracy, where kind of the mob rule with the majority vote, would that kind of play into that same systematic ideal of a mob rule, because the majority of maybe the party, or the majority of even in the general election, if you do a ranked base there, that the people that are, there's no real protection for the individuals that do have maybe the minority thought process with either in the party or in the country, even if we end up going on a national front like that, to where with the rank-based voting, the people that have similar idealisms have obviously the 51, 52, 55% of the support with their ranked base. They consolidate, and then they end up pushing a lot of the election their way in many of the races. I don't know if there'd be protections for maybe the individuals that aren't necessarily the like-minded of that group.
Well, I think there's always risk in democratic-style voting for that mob rule. It's why the founding fathers, didn't, create a democracy. We went with a republic, but when it comes to the voting of our representatives, it has to be democratic. And I think if you've got 2/3 of the people that want a certain style of government versus 1/3, I don't see why the 1/3 should win.
Sure. Well, no, and I agree with you there. So it's an interesting point. I appreciate it, John, the Libertarian. There, I want to take another phone call here, but no, you're absolutely right. I think it's a discussion to have, to continue to have. So I knocked the microphone away here. We will get Bob Weeks on the program to chat a little bit about it, since he did write about it in his Wichita Liberty story, and what potentially could have affected the governor's primary race for the Republican side. I think it is a discussion worth having. I don't know if we go towards a road like that or not. I think it may complicate some, but at the same time, maybe it could have some benefits to it. Let's go back to the phones here. Line at number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Sue.
Hey, good morning, Sue. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Hey, living the dream every day.
Well, I'm driving, so hopefully I won't get cut off. But on this, tiny house thing, I just wanted to say that I really think this is a fad. I've seen it on TV and such, and I think the city is crazy for jumping on board with this fad, because I don't think it's going to last that many years.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do jump on board with it, I think they definitely need to look at things like making sure that we're not dealing with a bunch of composting toilets that aren't being handled properly, and all kinds of other issues that come with the tiny house movement. So, I'm with you. I think we should not be looking at, there's a reason we've kind of got a moratorium on trailer parks in the south part of town. And it kind of goes hand in hand with that.
Right.
Because
I mean, cramming tons of people into small quarters creates a lot of issues.
Well, and that's true. And after a number of years of building more and more trailer parks, the city finally figured out that that is not the way to increase their tax base. It's not the way to enrich the coffers of the city. It's a drag on everybody. And now we've got a bunch of trailer courts that are full of rentals because people had predatory lending and they bought trailers they couldn't afford. We've got a lot of sex offenders living in those places, a lot of transient people that come and go.
Sure.
And, that's not what we want our city to be. So I understand that the haves have never wanted the have-nots living next door. That's just the way it's always been. But I do understand why these people have a real problem with it, because it does have the potential over time to just become glorified trailer parks, unfortunately.
And that would be my big concern. You're right. And if you're 2 blocks away from houses that are $300,000, $400,000 homes, I would be very concerned about that as well, of what the property value is going to look like for me and what the community is going to look like. Here's an idea that we have. If we're looking towards lower income areas to where, people can't afford a $200,000 home, but can only afford a $75,000, $100,000 home, which I get. Like I said, my home is the same way. My home's valued at like $80,000. I can't afford a $200,000 house. Why don't we look at revitalizing certain areas where there are fixer-upper homes that may not be in the best areas? We start working on those areas. We invest in the money to fix those up. We invest in that community around there. And then we start raising the value of what we already have, as opposed to looking at new areas that potentially could go down that same road.
That's right. And, if people spend $100,000 on a micro mansion now, and in 3 years they're sick of being constrained by 500 square feet, the chances of them being able to sell it and get their money back once the fad wanes is going to be very difficult. So what's going to happen? They're going to become rentals.
Exactly.
And that's just the way it's going to end up being. So I don't know. I think the city needs to be really careful about this. You know, it took them all these years to jump on the I want to be like Friends and Seinfeld and live downtown. And so they've been packing downtown with fancy apartments and a bar zone and whatever, way past the curve of that thing. So, you know, are we now going to jump on the micro mansion thing at the latter end of it and end up with a big problem 10 years from now because of it? I think they're just crazy.
Well, I'd have to agree to a lot of that, Sue. Appreciate the call very much, so I want to sneak in some more here. But you're right. I mean, I think that there's other opportunities that we can have. And you're right. I mean, if we end up growing, obviously, if you're a starter family, you're a younger couple, you're getting into a mansion, it's $100,000. You can afford it. You're starting off your life. It's cheaper. And then all of a sudden you start having kids and you start expanding your family. You need to look up. I mean, I don't see a way to increase the value of a home like that. You're kind of capped. It's like that brand new car. I mean, it's a nice car, but as soon as you drive it off the lot, the value of it does go down. That's the prime of the value. You're not going to be able to increase the value anymore. That's it. It goes down from there. These homes, you're not going to be able to add on to them. You're not going to be able to expand on them. That's it. You're just kind of as is. And then the wear and tear and the years that go on and the stuff that starts going out on it and the things that go on, it's just, just time and wear and tear and living in it is going to lower the value of that. You try and move out. You try and get someone to buy it. Maybe a new family is going to be able to come in and do a fixer-upper on it. Maybe someone else is going to do a starter home mentality on there. But at the same time, are you going to get the full amount back out of it? I highly doubt it. And we'll see continue the devaluing of the home until it's really not worth a whole lot, as opposed to going in and maybe trying to clean up certain areas and being able to raise the value of those and create a new environment for individuals to be enticed to go in and have fixer-uppers, have a starter home, and have a little bit cheaper home in that sense because they just may be a little bit older. The shine, the sparkle that entices us may not be there forever, and that's a big concern to have, so I appreciate that. Let's go back to the phones here. Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Jordan.
Good morning, Jordan. How are you?
I'm doing well. I just wanted to say I'm a little worried about expanding Wichita because we are already 480 or so thousand people in the area, which is roughly the size of San Diego, and we still have this small town feel. If we get much bigger, much quicker, we will lose that small town feel and the conservative love that this city has.
That is very true. That's a really great point. I mean, there is something unique about us. And, we're right about the same size as Colorado Springs. And Colorado Springs was on that edge of losing that small town feel to it. You kind of sort of had it, but not really. It was starting to go to the wayside. And you're right. We begin to really expand at a large rate and a fast rate. Then you're right. I think we're going to start losing something like that. So I agree completely. Jordan, I appreciate it. Really great point. And that's something that a lot of people like, the small town feel to it. I mean, we have something unique in Wichita. It is a larger-ish city. At the same time, we do have a small town feel. We do have an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I remember so-and-so. I know so-and-so. This is the area they live. This is the district, whatever. We have that small town feel. We start growing at a crazy rate, and that is going to change very dramatically. We haven't done this yet, but it is time. There it is. Yeah.
Call now at 721-8255. Right here on KQAM.
I don't know if you're aware or not, but the State Fair is coming up fast and furious upon us. And on Sunday, September 16th, is the crazy Outlaw Truck and Tractor Pulls, brought to you by the Mid-America Network. We're really excited to be a part of that, as we are every single year at the Kansas State Fair, 3 p.m. Sunday, September 16th. And we have a pair of tickets to give away to you to be able to go and see those truck and tractor pulls at the Kansas State Fair. Give me a call right now, 316-721-8255. We'll do caller number 1 today right here on The Voice of Reason and get you a pair of those truck and tractor pulls here on KQAM.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Congratulations to Eric winning the tickets to the Truck and Tractor Pull. We'll do another one tomorrow. Stay tuned in for that giveaway. We'll do one each day this week and next week. So I got a plenty amount of time to be able to get your tickets to the Truck and Tractor Pulls. Great conversation today. We did it. We were able to survive through the Dayquil high that we've been riding all morning. We'll do it again tomorrow. Hopefully it'll be the same thing. Tomorrow, Greg Orman, independent candidate for the governorship, will be joining us, talking to us about the race. I will ask him about the fight that the Democrats are trying to do to remove him off the ballot based on the signatures and the petition that he has. We'll run through some of the numbers tomorrow and get the lowdown on what's happening with the latest in that race. It is an interesting conversation when it comes to the micro mansions that we've been talking about and putting in the small little homes and compacting them in small quarters. Remember, I mean, outside of the the property values and concerns that we have there, remember, as we go along, the more people that we compact into small quarters, the easier it is to control, if you want to look at it from the philosophical sense, not to put on the tinfoil hat or anything, but it's obviously easier to control. Then you can look at property value. Then you can look at opportunity. Then you can look at whether it's actually going to be increasing value or decreasing value. And that's a concern that we all should have as we talk about decisions as a city. This is your show. Always appreciate the conversation. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is The Voice of Reason. Everybody have a great Tuesday.